Before you scroll, I want you to think of one person, not the person you miss, the person your mind refuses to release. Because Jung believed that person is not the mystery, you are. Now notice what just happened in your body. Did your chest tighten? Did something shift before your mind could explain it? Jung observed something uncomfortable about that reaction. He said it is not telling you about them. It is telling you something about yourself that you have not yet fully understood. And by the end of this video, you will understand why some people stay in your mind long after they have disappeared from your life. Most people believe powerful connections happen because of the other person, their energy, their presence, their mystery. But Jung returned to this idea again and again throughout his life, and what he found completely dismantles that belief. The intensity you feel toward another person has very little to do with them. Wait, that is not the real reason. The real reason lives much deeper. Jung called it projection, and once you understand what this actually means, not the surface definition, the real, uncomfortable, life-changing meaning, you will never experience a connection the same way again. But first, consider a case similar to those described in Jungian analysis. Imagine a man, we will call him Thomas, 47, successful, disciplined, in control of almost everything. And then he met a woman at a conference, a brief conversation, nothing more, and something inside him shattered quietly. He could not stop thinking about her, not in an obsessive way, in a way that felt significant, like something inside him had been unlocked and now refused to close again. He described it to his analyst like this: "She did not complete me. She reminded me of something I had forgotten about myself." His analyst smiled and said, "Now we are getting somewhere real." Have you ever felt that? Not the feeling of needing someone, but of being reminded of something in yourself by someone else? Be honest with yourself right now, because this is where Jung's most important insight begins. Jung noticed that inside every human psyche, there lives an unconscious counterpart. In men, he called it the anima, the inner feminine, the qualities a man suppressed or was never allowed to develop: sensitivity, creativity, emotional depth, now living below the surface of his awareness. In women, the animus, the inner masculine, strength, directness, the freedom to take up space, buried beneath years of being told to be smaller. And when you meet someone who embodies these qualities, someone who carries what your unconscious has been holding, something inside you does not just respond, it erupts. Not because they are your soulmate, but because they are holding a mirror to a part of you that has been waiting in the dark. But here is what Jung almost never gets explained correctly. Projection is not the illusion. The illusion is believing the other person created those qualities. Sometimes they really do possess them. The mistake is not in recognizing those qualities. The mistake is believing they are the only place those qualities exist. That distinction changes everything. Yet something even stranger happens next, because Jung believes something even more unsettling follows projection, and almost nobody notices it when it does. Imagine waking up one morning, and suddenly seeing someone exactly as they are, not as your heart imagined them, not as the version that appeared in the beginning, electric and perfect and almost unreal, but as a real, complicated, fully human being. This is what Jung called the withdrawal of projection, and it is the moment most relationships either collapse completely or deepen into something real. Jung believed the fading of that initial intensity is not the end of the connection. It is the first moment the connection has a chance to become real. Before that, you were not in relationship with them. You were in relationship with your own unconscious. Have you ever noticed that? How the version of someone you fell for and the person who eventually stood in front of you felt like two different people? That gap is not betrayal. That gap is the distance between projection and reality. This is where Jung goes deeper. What about the connection that will not leave you? The one that ended or never fully began, but still returns in quiet moments, still rises when everything becomes still enough to hear yourself again. Jung observed something precise about this. When a connection breaks before the projection is withdrawn, before the unconscious content is reclaimed, the projection does not dissolve. It stays attached to that person in your inner world, long after they have left your outer one. This is why you still think about them. The pull you feel is not a pull toward them. It is a pull toward yourself, toward the qualities, the depth, the aliveness you glimpsed in them and have not yet claimed as your own. In a moment, I will share the method Jung developed to reclaim exactly that. Here's the part almost everyone misses. Consider another case from the tradition of Jungian analysis. Imagine a woman, we will call her Elena, a therapist herself, 40 years old, convinced she understood herself. She had ended a relationship 3 years earlier, logically, cleanly, for all the right reasons. But he never left. Not in her mind, not in her dreams, not in the quiet standards she measured every new person against, without being able to name it. Her analyst asked her one question. Just one. What quality in him affected you most deeply? She sat with it for a long time, and finally said, his courage to be uncertain, the way he could stand in not knowing, without needing to control the outcome. Her analyst said, that quality is not uniquely his. It is something you have been suppressing in yourself for a very long time. Elena had spent her entire career helping others sit with uncertainty, while privately controlling every detail of her own life, because uncertainty terrified her. When she met someone who embodied what she had buried, she did not simply fall in love with him, she fell in love with the version of herself she had never allowed herself to become. When she understood that, not just intellectually, but somewhere in her body, everything shifted. Not because he returned, but because she did. The quality in them that moved you most, say it quietly to yourself right now. Their freedom, their depth, their ability to feel without apologizing for it, their courage to exist without shrinking. Now ask yourself, where does that quality live in you? How long have you been looking for it outside yourself? Because something told you you were not allowed to have it? That question is worth more than any answer about them. Now comes the difficult part. What about their silence, their distance, the mixed signals that left you reading everything and understanding nothing? Jung noticed something in his clinical work that most people find difficult to accept. When someone steps back from a powerful connection, it may not always mean absence of feeling. Sometimes, a person withdraws precisely because the experience confronts something in them they are not yet ready to face. Think about this honestly. Have you ever felt something so strongly that instead of moving toward it, you froze or pulled back or became suddenly busy with everything except the thing that mattered most? Sometimes, fear does not run away. It simply learns how to look like distance. You may have become a mirror for them, reflecting something they were not yet ready to see. And mirrors are uncomfortable, especially when what they show is the gap between who someone is and who they sense they could become. But here is what matters more than any of this. You cannot do their work for them. No matter how clearly you see their potential, no matter how long you are willing to wait, no matter how much you love them. Tonight, before you sleep, try something Jung often asked his patients to do. He called it active imagination. It was never meant as fantasy. It was a structured dialogue with the unconscious. Close your eyes. Bring that person into your mind. Not to replay the past, not to rehearse what you should have said, but to ask them one question in your imagination, and then genuinely listen. The question is this: what are you trying to show me about myself? Not what did they do wrong, not what do you want from them. What are you trying to show me about myself? Then listen to whatever arises, without judgment, without editing, without deciding in advance what the answer should be. Jung found that when the unconscious is given genuine space, it answers. Not always in words, sometimes in images, sometimes in feelings, sometimes in a quiet knowing that simply was not there before you asked. And what it reveals is the part of yourself that has been waiting in that connection for you to finally bring it home. Jung returned to one question throughout his entire life's work. Not, will they come back? But, who are you becoming while you wait to find out? Because the person who reclaims what they projected, who integrates the depth and aliveness they glimpsed in another, no longer needs the connection to complete them. They are already complete. And from that place, they can love without losing themselves. They can remain open without remaining suspended. Jung observed something that I want to leave with you. He said, the most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely. Not the version waiting to be chosen, not the version that only feels whole when someone else confirms it, but the version that already carries everything you have been searching for in someone else's eyes. That version does not need to be found. It needs to be accepted. Whether this person returns or not, you will not be the same person who met them. You will be the person they woke up, and perhaps that was the real purpose of meeting them all along. Before you leave, ask yourself one question. What part of me have I been searching for in someone else? If something came to you, Comment one word below. Mirror. And next week, we go into the concept Jung believed was more dangerous than the shadow itself. The persona, the mask the world sees, and the person trapped behind it. Most people spend their entire lives performing it, without ever realizing it is not who they are. Subscribe to Velmind, and I will see you there.